Welcome, everyone, to the Indie Game Lunch Hour. Today, we're talking about careers in gaming with Ada Figueroa.
The Indie Game Lunch Hour.
In our live magical podcast, we give game developers a chance to hear stories of breaking in from industry experts. We talk with them one-on-one, get some stories from them, then give time for the community to ask questions in the second half of each episode. Come and join us every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time to hear our experts and ask your questions live. I'm your guest host today, Rick Williams, the Warlock of Roadmaps at the Indie Game Academy. I'm standing in for Willem. He was unable to make it today. Today we're talking with Ada Figueroa, the industry happiness manager, currently leading the people and culture strategy for new games at King. Ada, what are you having for lunch today?
Well, welcome everyone. So it's actually 6 p.m. for me because I'm based in Barcelona, so I'm just having a double espresso right now.
Excellent. That is usually what people are having, no matter what time it is for them. It's always some coffee,
Absolutely,
some kind of caffeine.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into games, and help us get to know you?
Absolutely. So I actually got into games by mistake. So I studied PR and economics. I was not a big fan of economics, so I ended up switching careers. So I decided to study international relations and PR. So I loved bringing people together. So I ended up, my first job was organizing events, basically medical congresses, very boring. Maybe you know, but like doctors in general, they don't like colors in their events. So I realized it wasn't for me. I needed something more creative. So I was looking for for a new job, and I found this company called King, and they were looking for someone that would organize events and that would manage all the travel requirements for the candidates. So I basically joined the recruitment team. I think it was like 6 years ago at King, and it was amazing because the company was growing like from 300 employees to 600 in 2 years. So I was part of all this growth. So I got to meet a lot of people that some of them, they're still now at King, but some left to other companies, or they built their own. So it was really, really nice. So my journey at King was first in recruitment, then HR, then events. And then I moved to Bandai Namco, that you probably know, to create the European mobile headquarters here in Barcelona as well. And after 3 years, I moved back to King, which is a bit unusual, right? Like it's like going back with an ex. It's kind of interesting.
It depends on how you parted.
Right? Yeah. But I realized that it's quite common. There's like 20 people that went back to King, which is a good sign, right? It means it's a good employer. So I'm back in new games, in the new games team. So working, of course, with new exciting IPs. And we recently been acquired by Microsoft. So yeah, right now it's one of the most exciting moments for us. So my current job is basically looking after the team who makes games, right? Like the creatives, the tech guys, like the super smart geniuses that I work with and that I learn from every day. So yeah, this is my job.
Cool. So what you do is so when you say you look after them, are you making sure that they are not burning out, that they're mentally well with the job, that their stress and work-life balance is okay?
Absolutely, yes. So as you might know, the gaming industry is a passion-driven industry, which means that everyone who is, making games is extremely excited and passionate about their jobs. So I want to make sure that no one gets to a stage of burnout, but they're still mentally challenged or creatively challenged, right? So yeah, indeed, it's a bit of a tricky point, right? It's about finding balance and also making sure that people don't get bored, because sometimes people don't want to get bored at work. It's interesting, but sometimes when we transition from one project to the other, and I'm like, okay, guys, you have 1 week to unwind, relax. It's like, no, I want to do something. So yeah,
I'm in
it's a
flow.
lot.
I want to continue. I'm curious.
What do
What's
you
the
think?
I'm curious what the litmus test is for that because that's definitely something that's true, where people will be excited and they will just push themselves 60, 80 hours a week and then suddenly they'll just need to disappear for a week because they just completely overdid it. So I'm curious, like, how do you, like, what's your litmus test on keeping tabs on people for how much effort they're putting in and if they need a break or like, how do you check in with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are different ways, right? So our approach is first of all to have producers that manage all the deadlines and project workload and individual workloads. So that's number one. And number two, it's also checking in with individuals, right? Because we all have different ways of working. We all have different stress levels that we want to be and we all want to be respected. For instance, I'm someone who gets bored easily, so I like to work a lot intensively and maybe like have like 1 or 2 days like more chilled and relaxed. But some people are not like that, so we just need to understand a bit how everyone works. And we also have some anonymous surveys to check in like stress levels. But just to give you an example, like when we check stress levels, we are not looking for a 0, right? Because if you're 0 stressed, it means that you're bored and probably you have nothing to do. For me, like the optimal point is a 5 or maybe even a 7, because I like to be a bit under stress or to have some deadlines. What
Right.
about you? What would you think?
I definitely know that I tend to work better a little bit closer to the 8 or 9 point, like where
Mhm.
I if I have absolutely no stress, I tend to overestimate how much time I have, and so I think it's okay, I'll get to it. But when I'm really feeling a deadline coming on, I tend to push a little bit harder. So that's like personally how I work. But I know that if that sustains for too long, it can start to wear on you. So it kind of has to be a fluctuating amount where like important things have to be on a deadline, but it's also nice to have a little bit of creative freedom where you can explore and toy with things, let your subconscious work on uh, your problems that you're working on.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree.
So that's balancing the workload. I'm curious, and I'm only going to ask this because I'm currently reading a book called
Mhm.
Leadership and Self-Deception. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's talking about the interpersonal relationships between people. You can manage your systems and have everything uh, in in order for getting the job done, but the interactions between people can be a coefficient on how people feel about their jobs and how much they actually get done and how much of themselves they put into it. Um, so I'm curious what your thoughts are on like managing the interactions between people. Like, is this a culture thing that you build up, or is like how do you identify when there's perhaps interpersonal problems?
Well, it's such a complex topic, right? I mean, if I talk too much, let me know. But let
Okay.
me first share like kind of a disclaimer. So there's a test for IQ, right? Intellectual coefficient, and there's another one that it's for emotional intelligence. So just to give you a context here, my emotional coefficient is extremely high. It's 120, and like the usually like the highest is 110. So it's extremely high. This means that I sense people very quickly and I read people very quickly and I connect with people very quickly and easily, which is also can be difficult, right? Sometimes to disconnect from people as well. So I can tell you, like, we are all very complex. We are all always evolving and we all change depending on the context that we have. So for me, it's super important to understand the people that we have in our teams, not only from their hard skills, right, but mainly from their soft skills. So I also want to recommend everyone attending here today to do some tests just for you to know um, how are your soft skills, right? Or what are your highest ranking soft skills? So I'll give you 4 names of tests that you can write down, and most are free. So there's one that's called DISC, DISC test. Definitely do this one. There's another one called 16 personalities. This one is for free as well. And another one that's called Gallup. Gallup Clifton, this is great. I mean, it costs $50 this one, but you get a full report where basically you see your top 5 skills or 5 strengths. And I would encourage everyone to focus on those, right? Because you're going to tailor your CV and your future jobs all based on your top 5 strengths. And then there's another one that's called, another test that's called Big Five. So my suggestion for everyone here is do this test, literally like pull out the reports and drop them in ChatGPT and say, hey, can you analyze all of this and like define what are my top soft skills and what I should be working on? And from these, like really start developing your career plan. Why do I say this? Because I work with multicultural teams, people with different backgrounds, different seniority levels. And what I realized, like everyone can learn hard skills, right? But soft skills are really, really hard to learn and master. And there's a quote that I love. It's not by me, it's by James Lane, the design director that I work with. He's amazing. He always says that the ceiling of your career will be determined by your soft skills. Meaning, you can always be an individual contributor, right? You can be an amazing developer, an amazing artist, but if at some point you want to become an art director or a tech director or creative lead, you need to become a manager, right? Like a people manager. And this is really difficult. It's completely the opposite, right? It's prioritizing the team above yourself. So working on your soft skills and mastering them will definitely determine how far you can grow in your career. And it's super important, of course, to get to know yourself and get to manage yourself so that you can manage others and you can understand others. What do you think, Rick?
I agree with you 100%. Almost every single book that I read regarding like business leadership or organizational management, it all focuses on the soft skills. How can you work with people and keep everybody in sync on a common vision, but also feeling good about what you're working towards? Because if you can really get people moving in sync, there's a high level of collaboration and cooperation. And when you don't have personality frictions, or at least you minimize them and you get people going, you can leverage people's hard skill strengths. So, one person's single hour on something they're good at is worth 8 hours of somebody's time if they're just not particularly good at it. So, if you can coordinate everybody and get them moving, then everybody can not only be very effective, but they can also enjoy every day. And that just kind of leads to better living. So I actually really love this.
Yeah, and let me just share an example because now I'm at King, but I used to work at Bandai Namco, right? So different ways of working, definitely. Just to give you an example, at Bandai, we were looking for very senior people that could be like amazing solo contributors, but we were not really looking for like great teams, right? Only solo contributors. And usually they are the opposite, like great divas or great superstars. Sometimes I find it challenging to work on teams. So it might be even better, like to have people who are okay, or like they have like a medium level of, hard skills, but that they can work better in teams than just incredible, like high performing individuals. So yeah.
It's like if you end up working with somebody who's difficult, you end up going into like the way you leave a meeting, you don't feel good and you're in like a fight or flight mode. And I've noticed that once you've got the adrenaline pumping because you had a difficult interaction with somebody, creative problem solving goes out the window. So in games especially, creative problem solving is the core of everything that you do. So if you have people who are tough to work with, that it throws off the entire dynamic of the team.
Absolutely, and especially in creative teams, right? I mean, art is such a subjective craft. What's your experience, Rick, working with artists?
Working with artists, I found that artists, you really need to understand their goals and their like what their skill sets are and what the kind of things are that they want to create. But then you also need to make sure you understand what they need in order to succeed from a vision perspective and from a technical perspective. So like if depending on what they're going to make for your game, you need to make sure that they're properly informed on the end deliverable that they want. But then also you have to have that feedback cycle with them, and you have to use the critique sandwich where you definitely are thoughtful about how they feel about the art, because the art that they produce is something that they've put emotional investment in. It's kind of an extension of themselves. A lot of more advanced artists are used to getting productive critique, but you definitely have to make sure that you are tactful in the way that you deliver it and be very specific about, this is our goal and this is the kind of feedback that I have in pursuit of that goal. But working with artists is wonderful because they can add so much to your game as far as invoking the kind of feeling and aesthetic that you want from the game. That yeah, working with artists is wonderful. I don't know if that is what you were going at.
Yeah, absolutely. And just from my experience, right? I think artists, like I especially, I care a lot for them because I think everyone can have an opinion about art, but not everyone can have an opinion about code, right? So we have to be more careful when we deliver feedback, especially if we're not experts like me. So yeah, and same applies to designers. But yeah, it's one of the groups that I love working with. Like my number one is always creative people because they always surprise me and they always think out of the box. And yeah, I just really really love working with them. So Rick, I have a question for you actually.
Yes.
So what are the most demanded jobs or profiles that you see in the Indie Game Academy?
The most demanded jobs.
Mm.
So, I mean, everybody kind of plays an equal part. When it comes to the demanded jobs, it's probably the people in production who. So you have your coders. So that there's the advanced level coders who are able to really work the software architecture and keep the projects stable and scalable. But then it's the production people who can coordinate everybody and align everybody and orient them towards the same vision. We, like in our level 3 program, we look for prefects who are the ones who kind of herd the team and get everybody shepherded in that direction of, hey, listen, remember, this is our vision, this is our scope, and let's make sure that what everybody's working on this week is going to culminate in a cohesive deliverable at the end of the sprint.
Mhm.
But definitely artists and musicians. There's a lot of narrative people, and game dev groups tend to pull in people who have software skills. But the artists and the musicians are something that they can come in and they can do a lot. But when it comes to recruiting, there's not an overwhelming surplus of artists and musicians.
I
There does
agree.
seem to be a lot of writers and a lot of coders, but the coders who understand specifically how to construct game architecture is one of those things that people can have experience working in different kinds of software, but putting together the structure for a game format is something that takes just a little bit more experience.
Absolutely. And overall, I just want people to know that you can become a generalist or a specialist, but it's really hard to have both. So at some point, like you need to choose, right? Like, are you going to be a generalist, like a producer that you know a bit of everything, right? And you can manage everyone. I mean, you can manage people, the product, and the processes, or you're going to be a specialist, like an artist, a developer, a data science, or a designer. So once you know what path you want to pursue, that's wonderful. Go ahead. I will also like to share that the market right now, I mean, it really depends on the country, right? But it's maybe not at its best. It really depends, right? But the good thing is, like, for whoever that is interested in creating your own games, and I guess you all are, it's great because with the help of AI, there's so many things one individual can do at the same time. So it's just wonderful, all the options, the resources that are out there. However, if you want to apply to a large corporation like King or any other one, if you're an artist, I recommend pursuing the UI, tech art, or VFX roles rather than concept art. And if you're a developer, definitely focus on learning a lot about AI, right? Because that's very I mean, it's just everywhere. But yeah, the developers, the good thing, like especially C++ developers, are always needed. So it's no matter, how junior or how senior you are, you will always find a job probably. And then designers, from my perspective, economy designers are the most wanted at the moment.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, that's actually a perfect segue into the core topic of this, which is talking about careers in gaming. But before we jump into it fully, I'm going to remind the audience, ask you if you have any questions for Ada, please put them in the Discord chat channel here and mark your questions with a Q emoji, and we will get to them in about 15-20 minutes. Okay, so Ada, so talking about the careers in gaming, what advice do you have for people? I know you just gave us some stuff, but if you want to keep expanding on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say, first of all, if you want to be part of the gaming industry or the gaming community, you need to love games, right? Unless you're like me and you're like a people person. And I only, I work with creative teams or game making teams, but I don't create games myself. Otherwise, I would strongly encourage everyone to start creating your own games and add them in your portfolio, because that's how you're going to learn what you like and what you don't like, right? Like maybe you're an artist, but at some point you realized, oh, I would love to move towards the tech side as well and become like a tech artist. Oh, that's wonderful. It's one of the most demanded profiles. So yeah, just start creating games from scratch.
Yeah, so that sounds like you're recommending something like game jams where you are working with
Absolutely.
people, but also not being afraid to try the different roles so that you know for sure what you really, really have a passion for doing.
Exactly. 100%. Game jams for sure. Or start, I mean, the easiest way to get in the industry is to become a QA tester, right? So just playing games, testing games all the time, so you can also learn the product and then move to the actual game development teams in big corporations, right? But also, if you want to create your own game, I think Indie Game Academy is the best place to learn, right? I don't know what options do you offer to the students, Rick?
So the IGA in its current iteration has 3 levels. There is a level, well, I guess there's 4. There's a level 0, but there's a level 1 that walks you through creating a game in a weekend, where it'll be something like Flappy Bird. I think that's a level 0 course, but you'll be able to create motocross, or they're going to do Doodle Jump this coming weekend. There's a level 2 course, which I teach the level 2 courses, where we'll, over the course of 5 weeks, teach you how to clone a game like Clash Royale or Spyro, and we'll walk you through the process and cover the verticals to some degree, so that you get a broad idea of how to build a complete game, but also something that's relatively complex. And level 3 is the group courses, where you work as a team for a 4-month period, and at the end of it, you provide a pitch and publish your game on some platform, whether itch or Steam, just to get a published title under your belt that you worked on with the team.
Awesome. I think it's really perfect, for whoever that wants to learn how to create games. It's the right way to go for sure. And another thing that I want to mention is, there's a report by the World Economic Forum about the most demanded skills in 2025, right? When it comes to the future of work. And I'll just read them, right? But the first one, it's analytical thinking and innovation. The second one is active learning, so continuous learning. Third one, complex problem solving. Fourth, critical thinking. 5, creativity, originality, and initiative. 6, leadership. 7, technology use and control. 8, technology design. 9, resilience and flexibility. And 10, reasoning. So, I mean, I encourage everyone to Google them, right? You don't have to memorize them. Top 10 skills of 2025 by World Economic Forum. If you read them, you will realize all of these applies to the gaming industry, especially when it comes to analytical thinking, active learning, complex problem solving, and creativity. So the industry might not be at the best right now, but it's true, like the consumption of video games is growing a lot. And I'm sure like there will be lots of small companies or indie companies that will start growing in the next years. So definitely a good industry to join very soon.
Yeah, so I guess I have two questions off of this. The if somebody wanted to get into the industry, what would be like the top, let's say top two skill sets or like roles that they want to develop themselves for? Yeah, I know you mentioned tech artist before, but if you can think of the top two or three, and then if you wanted to be in an indie studio as opposed to something that was a larger studio, what would be the way that you develop your skills?
Wow, great questions. So I can only speak for large corporates, right? So we definitely are looking for VFX artists, tech artists, UX and UI artists for sure. And then from tech, as I said, any programming, any language, but mainly C++ for sure. And you have to learn a lot about prompts and yeah, AI in general. And then any roles that are in the data craft. So yeah, data manager, data scientist, data analyst, all of this. Yeah, you will always have a job in the industry because, as you know, like games are a combination of art and science, right? Like I always say, like there's a lot of people creating games, but there's also a lot of people analyzing the data of these games, and it's a business, right? So you wanna make sure that the monetization strategy it's the right one because the market changes very fast. There are many competitors, and there are so many great games like every other month that you always have to be, at the top of what's happening. So you also need to be always learning new disciplines and what's also how's the market, right? Because you might know, but now in the MENA region, so there's Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Saudi Arabia, who basically want to become number one gaming cities by 2032 worldwide. So their governments are investing a lot in new talent or new gaming companies. There are a lot of venture capitals that want to invest in gaming professionals. So, well, it's maybe a good region to move to or to explore. And otherwise, it will always have Europe, US, and China as well, right? But yeah, you always need to to stay updated of what's going on in the market. And I think that definitely AI will have a huge impact on the number of games that are released every year and the number of people that you actually need to create a really cool game. What do you think, Rick? That is the impact that AI will have in the gaming industry?
I think AI is going to open like that. There's a lot of ethical questions about AI, but AI definitely is going to shorten the turnaround time on a lot of things. There's creating mood boards, for example, where if you try to do a Google search and find the kind of AI or the kind of image that's like, oh, this captures the spirit of what we want. But if you are really skilled at prompting, you could prompt out an image for your mood board very quickly that you could then use to help inform your other artists. Like this is kind of the vibe that we're going for, even if you don't want to put AI straight into your game. But there's also going to be the markets of people who are going to just say, I need a background for my main menu, and that they know how to prompt, they can just generate something, and they'll be able to generate things very quickly. And if people have a template of a game to work with, they could generate 10 iterations of the same game just by reskinning their template repeatedly. So in a month they could probably create 2 or 3 games just with a bunch of AI generated assets, whether it's music or art, and that's if you are really skilled at doing the prompting, and you can immediately get to what you want. I think there's a lot of misgivings that people have because of the amount of time and energy that people put into developing their artistic skills, and so that there's a lot of conversations to be had about what's right and what's not. But the fact is, a tool has been created that's going to really simplify the creation of a lot of time consuming artworks, and it's not going to just disappear. So figuring out how to adapt to it is kind of the only way forward.
I totally agree. I mean, it's like laptops, right? I mean, today, if you don't know how to use a laptop, you're basically, I mean, it's going to be very hard for you to find a job. So I think AI, the sooner you familiarize yourself with the tools and the resources out there, the better for you. I can give you an example of a game that's very successful. It's called MOB Control, so Mob Control, developed by Voodoo. So this game was originally made by three people, literally three people, and they are super high performing at the moment. They're growing very fast. They're doing extremely well. Their metrics are really good, and they are almost like in the top 100 in the App Store. So just three people, it's incredible. When in the past you needed probably like 50 people for the same game. And why? Because AI. They have an amazing team that's very, very talented, very skilled, and they definitely use AI. So yeah, that's something that can be done from anyone, literally, as long as you know how to use the tools. Then yeah, it's always an option.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. It's really kind of daunting to think about how much time you've put in learning a specific skill set and the idea that something can do that just as fast. But it is its own skill set, and I think that if people figure out how to utilize AI to augment what they already know, because a prompter won't necessarily be able to identify the best result, and if you really know what to ask the AI for because you are skilled at a specific subject matter, you could probably get much better quality results in a much quicker time frame. So trying to figure out that for yourself, it's definitely not something you should neglect. Like if you are stubbornly resisting AI, you should probably at least peek at it and see what it's capable of.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
The
absolutely.
so
Tell me.
I just wanted to ask really quick about that, or I wanted to clarify regarding the recommendations you had for skill sets to develop. So, in addition to like potentially some AI stuff, you were talking about like the different roles, and it seems like the theme in your roles is to be a bridge person between two different disciplines. So we talk about specialization. You can be the engineering specialist, you can be an artist specialist. But the roles that are highly in demand are the tech artists who can bridge the gap between art and what the technology is capable of doing from an artistic perspective. So is that like a good way to frame it? Figure out how to be the most solid bridge between the traditional separate disciplines?
Yeah, absolutely. You just nail it. Yeah, I think we're all, maybe this is a bit spiritual, but I think we're all like magnets of good and bad vibes, But yeah, I mean, I think being a bridge with disciplines and people always helps, especially thinking that, for instance, in my company, we have people from different backgrounds, different nationalities, different religions. Well, we have a very diverse group. So the more open-minded you are, and also the more respectful you are, and the more things you know, so the more generalist that you are, the better. So somehow being a tech artist is like, you're not going to be like an incredible guru about tech and an incredible guru about art. You're just going to be 50-50. But that's great, because if at some point you want to extend your career to the art side, you can do it, and the same on the tech side as well. And I think in our industry in general, I mean, I've been at King for how long now? 6 years. 6 years, and in 6 years I've been in 4 departments and I had 8 managers, which sounds like a lot. For me it's great because I don't like routines, and I like changes, and I like learning a lot. But this is how the industry moves, right? It goes really fast. It's like having like working in a rocket to the moon, but you have to change the pieces of the rocket while you're targeting the moon. It goes really, really fast. Also, if you think about AI, it goes even faster. So that's why sometimes, like, some people tend to burn out because they're so passionate about what they're doing that, and especially if they are creative, it's very hard to stop a creative process, right? If you're a creative director or even like an artist, you start creating and you don't want to stop, right? Because you love what you're doing, and it's like, oh, I'm drawing this amazing character, and now I have an idea of another character or this environment. It's like, okay, but I need to stop. So it's really hard. I mean, I usually encourage my people, to do some healthy breaks, some bio breaks, like go for a run or go outside, get some sun. Of course, I'm responsible of organizing team gatherings and events, but we do a lot of meditation, a lot of exercise, and a lot of things that try, to disconnect our minds and to be a bit more relaxed, especially for creative people, right? At least it's my experience. I don't know if you consider yourself a creative person, Rick. Do you?
Yes, I definitely do. I love what you're saying about the taking the time for meditation. One of the things that I like to do is I go to the gym, and I'll spend 2 hours at the gym, cardio, stretching, weight training, and I very specifically do it because it's something I've been doing for so long that I don't think about it. So it becomes an autopilot, a meditative process to just go. All you do is I lift things up and I put them down, right? It's very straightforward, but it allows myself to disconnect from technology, and I get away from the process of actively creating so that I can then my subconscious works and processes through the things that I've been thinking about. But it's also important to step away and allow other influences to feed into your brain. You need to consume something so that you have something to work into your algorithms to be creative with. If you stay wholly focused on your creativity, your creative creations constantly, then you run out of fuel and you start to just feel stuck and you get frustrated. So taking the breaks is important.
Absolutely. And I also want to share some data that I find heartbreaking, to be honest. So I read an article that around 85% of people working in US hate their jobs. So 85% is a lot, right? Also considering that on average we work like 40 years of our lives, maybe 50 depending on the country. So if you guys want to join the gaming industry, please do it ASAP, right? I can guarantee that you will never get bored. You will always have fun. It's also challenging and demanding, right? It's not easy for sure, but it's definitely not boring. And I've not met anyone who is not enjoying being part of the industry, right? Because I also have to tell you, like, either you love it or it's not for you, right? If you're like, meh, it's all right, I just, want to create games and get paid for it, and that's it. No, usually I mean, these people don't have space in the industry. Everyone is extremely passionate. So it's also very nice because you have this energy around you. Like everyone wants to do things, the more creative the better, and try new things. So yeah, I mean, my deep goal in life is that I want to change this data. I mean, for me, 85% of people hating their jobs, it's terrible as a society, and as someone looking after employees like well-being, it's really bad, right? Because it's so many years in our lives. So yeah, definitely working in the gaming industry, I can tell you it's a lot of fun. What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, I think that it's a tragedy when people can't wait to get to 65 so that they can be done. I think people should be looking forward to see what they've accomplished by the time they're 65.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are just about ready to switch to community questions. This has been awesome, Ada. Um, but first, what I'm going to do is one second. It's time for our community question of the day. I'm going to ask the audience, whoever types in these 5 things first, will get 3 points to award to whatever house that they want. What are the 4 soft skill tests that Ada recommended, and what should you do with the results when you've taken them? We will see who answers this question first. People are currently scrolling up in the chat.
Mhm.
You can't just reply. Type it out. Okay, true. Rachel has gotten the question first. I'm sorry, Clever. I see that you did type it, but you replied to what you typed out 30 minutes ago. Um, so, yes, the answer is there is the DISC test, Big Five, 16 personalities, and the Gallup-Clifton polls, or the Gallup-Clifton test. And what you should do is take those tests, get the results, and then ask ChatGPT what you should do to improve your skill sets going forward. Rachel, where do you want your house points to go to? Ranger, House Ranger, awesome. All right, I have invited Mike up to the stage to ask his question. He's going to be our first community question of the day. Mike, would you like to ask your question?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Hello,
Hola, Ada.
Mike. Hola.
So I just had a question from the perspective of presenting your findings. I imagine that in your position, there's a lot of impact you have with like entry and intermediate level roles, but there's also times where you might need to present findings to senior management or even executives at sometimes. And so I wanted to know if you were presenting your findings and results to somebody at that level. What are some metrics that you found are most impactful for them to receive and understand quickly? And how would you present those findings to them in a way that makes sense for them from a very top down level perspective on their, I guess their jobs?
Wow. Great question. I hope I have a good answer for you. So, I'm talking for my company right now. So, I definitely always believe that we are a people-centric company, right? I mean, we need talent to create great games. We're, for instance, my manager, he's very highly emotionally intelligent and he always cares about people. So when I share data with him, I always try to focus on engagement results, and we use an internal survey that, of course, is anonymous, and also attrition or turnover rates. This is very important because, as you know, it's very difficult to hire in the gaming industry, especially some profiles. So we want to make sure that not only our people join our company, but that they are happy, they are growing, they are engaged. They are also performing at the level they want, and that's also good for us. So that's basically where I have to focus on, right? Like make sure they are engaged. And let's be honest, it's also very important that if someone is not engaged or they feel like they are not in the right project, in the right team, or in the right company, it's also good to accept it and like invite people to look for something better. You know, for me, it makes no sense to retain someone who doesn't want to be in our company or in our team or has different values. So have some level of attrition rate or turnover, it's completely fine. But yeah, just not crazy high because it's also very difficult to replace certain profiles. So, I mean, for our leadership team, data that is related to people, it's extremely important, right? Because without talent, we cannot create great games.
Awesome. That's a really good position to be in when you kind of align with the values of senior leadership in the company. Um, that's really insightful. I appreciate it. I just wanted to add a quick follow up question to that, Rick, if you could have let me. But so as far as I guess like a threshold. So if there are people who maybe they're essentially not willing to stay with the company versus there could be something where you can propose a solution if there's enough people that maybe some decisions or some tempos are affecting. Like how do you know when you should propose a new solution versus it's most likely just kind of outliers and attrition in that?
That's a great question. I mean, maybe that's because of me and how I like to work and my personality, but usually I don't have surprises in the sense that I do regular syncs with everyone in my team, which is almost 200 people. So that's my why my agenda is so busy. But I like to know what's going on and how are people doing in all levels, right? Not only professional, but personal, if they feel like they want to share. And I'm also very flexible when it comes to how people manage their lives, as long as, they are committed with the project. And if one day they cannot, do what they were expecting, that the team knows and that we can find a way to manage. So for me, it's usually not surprising if someone tells me, hey, I'm leaving. I want a new challenge and I want to try something new. I usually be like, right, is there something I could do to make you stay? And they are usually very honest, either yes or no, or maybe changing projects, changing managers if they don't get along with their managers, which could happen, right? I mean, I think I said 8 managers, if I'm not mistaken. So I got along better with some than others, but still, it's always important to be vocal about what you need. And that's what my role is about. I mean, I have to say it's a very unique role, and I really wish all the companies and industries had this role. I mean, I focus 100% on people. I mean, I'm in syncs all day trying to find out what do people need to perform better and to be happier at work all the time. So I really wish all the companies and all the industries had this. Yeah.
No, that's
Awesome.
huge.
Yeah.
No, these are great questions, Mike. This is
Yeah.
huge because in a lot of ways, when you want to create a game dev studio, there's a lot of very mechanical processes that you have to put in place because games are very technical in their assembly, but you can't neglect the fact that there are people who fill all of the roles. So it's like system architecture. You are creating a machine to create the games, but the people who are in those specific roles are not machines themselves, and you have to manage that. And sometimes it can be difficult to get the person who designs the machine to also be the person who takes care of the people. And this is where people leverage their different strengths. So it's wonderful that your role even exists at your company.
Yeah, and just as an example, right? Like, for instance, if I know, like, at the moment the business doesn't provide a game that, I mean, let me come up with something. Like, I have someone who's like a concept artist and wants to work on midcore, and right now I'm only working on casual games. Well, I definitely know that this person might not be happy in the project that he or she is assigned. So I understand if this person would look for opportunity elsewhere, but if we have a good relationship and if he or she is honest with me, he can leave. And if at some point I have a new project, I will also reach out to this person and say, hey, now we have this opportunity, you want to come? And that's why I came back, and why like more than 20 other people went back to the company, because when you work in new games, something that I want people to know is like there changes constantly. Like, we can work on a new game for some months and then we cancel it, we reshuffle the teams, we have new games coming in. I mean, of course, we only launch the ones that we know are going to be super successful, but we work on several different projects at the same time. And of course, everyone is super excited at the beginning, but then when we have to cancel the games and then after a couple of weeks and they need to join new teams, it's a process, right? It's change management. Not everyone likes change, and not everyone likes constant change. So we are also looking for certain personalities or people that like this change, or I don't want to call it instability, but it's definitely not like routinary, that's for sure, right? So it's not for everyone, if you like more stability and you want to work on live games, that's totally fine. But that's when you would join King, for instance, and then work on Candy Crush, or join any other company and work on a live game. But when you work in new games, it's prototyping all the time. So you need to be very resilient. And not everyone is, has this profile or these skills. Yeah.
Willing to watch what you worked on for 2 months just get canned.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. No, this has been great. I'm going to ask the next community question on behalf of Andre Castro. His question is, in a career transition from a senior software developer to a game developer, what would be the best role to apply for? Somebody who has 5 years of development experience, mainly as a hobby with Unity and C#, but they have experience as a senior programmer. What are your recommendations?
I mean, let's be honest, I'm not a recruiter, and I'm not even like a tech recruiter, right? Which is even a more complex role. But I strongly encourage you to reach out to Justin Williams. and mention that I recommended him because he used to work at Blizzard. He's amazing, so he can definitely give you like the right answer that you're looking for. But in general, like I always tell people, apply if you meet like 60 or 70% of the job description. Like you're never going to be the absolute perfect candidate. You're never going to have 100% of the skills that are required. But also consider that sometimes when we create job descriptions, we don't even know, like who are we looking for? I mean, we sometimes also adapt it depending on the candidates that we're going to meet along the hiring process. So if you meet 60 or 70% of the job description, please, please, please apply.
Yeah, a lot of times those job descriptions themselves are very much unicorn positions, and one of my favorite quotes is not "Have you done everything on that position?" but "Can you do everything listed for that position?" Or at least be able to jump in and contribute effectively.
Absolutely, yes. And as I said before, like one of the most demanded skills, like in the job market in general in all industries, is continuous learning. So no matter what job you're going to join, you will have to learn either new software, new ways of working, new processes, everything. You will always have to learn. So yeah, definitely important to consider this. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Rick.
Yeah. Okay, so the third question that we've got, this is offered by Nick. He has a question. He's been hearing on LinkedIn that the European gaming jobs market has been a lot better to their employees than in the U.S. jobs market. Do you think that's a random rumor, or do you think there's some water to that? He's wondering if it's worth maybe getting a dual citizenship and just moving to Europe and getting a job there.
Okay, I'm super biased here, okay, because I'm Spanish and I love Spain. I mean, I studied in the US a little bit, but not long enough to judge on how is the culture, right? But I can only recommend one book that it's called The Culture Map, or just the Culture Map website. And you will see that there are different ways of working cultures depending on where you're born, raised, and educated. So if you check the American like way of working or the American working culture, it's pretty much the opposite of the Spanish working culture and also the opposite to the Swedish working culture. So it really depends on what you want. But like King, for instance, is a Swedish company, and their culture, I have to say, it's amazing. It's much better than standard Spanish culture. They're super inclusive, super diverse, super democratic. They're always open to feedback. Everyone is very respectful. I mean, it's really nice. If I had to choose one, I mean, I've also worked for the Japanese company. I would definitely go for the Swedish corporate culture. But it might be confusing for an American person that has always worked with American people because they are not direct, right? Like they always provide a lot of context. They are always open. Any decision is always open to everyone. So yeah, they're not as direct as Americans, and definitely also the opposite of Japanese people that write super long emails with lots of attachments. So yeah, very different. So I'm biased here, but I strongly recommend you to check the culture map. And actually, if you add me on LinkedIn and send me a message, I downloaded all the culture maps worldwide. I think there are like, well, as many as countries are there. And I can send you the screenshots because otherwise you will have to pay. So yeah, please add me on LinkedIn and reach out.
Yeah, that's a really that's a perspective that I think holds water, because I know that my fiance recently got hired into a company that is the CEO is from Europe. He's from the south of France, and the way that they're building the culture, like the reason I'm reading this leadership and self-deception book is specifically because it's reading that they give out to everybody as a form of establishing their culture. And one of the biggest things they say is, you've worked in America. There's a lot of things you need to unlearn. You don't need to give 200% every week. 70% is enough. Like, it's about the long game. We're playing the infinite game here. We don't have to milk you for everything you're worth. And it's a huge culture shock compared to, some of the other companies that we can potentially find ourselves working in here at the US, where, it's nose to the grindstone all day, every day. If you have energy, you're not working hard enough.
Yeah, I mean, Europe, it's not like that, right? I think life comes before work, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what you want. I just shared a book that I strongly recommend as well in the chat. It's called When Cultures Collide. It's a very big book, but it has all the cultures of the world, and you can just filter by chapter. For instance, when I joined Bandai Namco, I wanted to know what was potentially expected from me, right? If I was working for a Japanese company. And there you will read like how they like to deliver feedback, how they like to communicate, how do they expect me to, for instance, arrive like half an hour before to a meeting and stuff like that. When I'm Spanish and I'm usually late to all meetings, but that's fine. People know, it's okay. We're flexible. But they are not. They're clearly not flexible with time. So all of these you can read in this book. And otherwise, let me share now the link of the culture map. I mean, you don't need to buy the books, right? I mean, just Google them or just look for summaries on Google, and that's it. But I strongly recommend these two. Yeah.
All right, excellent. So it looks like you said you have a hard stop at 1 or 7 your time, so I will be respectful of that. There's 2 more things I want to ask you. The first is, for all of our students, what we like to do, or not students, but attendees and listeners of the podcast, if you could assign homework, one task that'll take maybe an hour to do, in the next week to help push you forward in your game development journey, what would be that homework that you would assign to them?
Yeah, definitely understand like who you are in terms of soft skills. So do these 4 tests, and let me write them again in the chat. So the test, there you go. And then, yeah, just add all the reports on ChatGPT and get a summary. And just understand who you are and also what you need to work on and how you should define your career based on that. And if anyone has any questions, want templates on how to prepare your career or on how to grow your career, either in the gaming industry or any other tech or creative industry, please do reach out to me. I'm unfortunately not a user, a frequent user of Discord. I only use LinkedIn, and it's already too much, but I'm usually very responsive on LinkedIn, so please do reach out to me anytime.
Excellent. And finally, do you have anything you would like to plug?
Oof.
Personal plugs.
Oof. I don't know how to answer this one. Do you?
I don't know if you've got any fun projects that you were working on, anything with your company or personal projects, anything you just want to have people check out.
Well, that's very interesting. Well, yeah, I would love to create like a portal or a platform to bring the gaming community together. But right now, unfortunately, I cannot do it because I'm just very busy at work. But I love what you guys are doing because you're actually doing what I want, right? Like bringing the gaming community together, sharing learnings, sharing resources. So yeah, that's it basically. Yeah, helping the gaming community.
All right, excellent. Well, it's been wonderful talking with you, Ada. I've enjoyed this conversation greatly. I've learned a lot from you. I know everybody in the audience is appreciative as well. We're going to let you go. I thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. And I'm very sorry I've not been very active on the chat. Sorry, first time using Discord. But thanks a lot, everyone, for joining. And as I said, like if I can help you anyhow, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. And thanks a lot for inviting me. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.